Matplotlib is not my favorite Python plotting library. That would probably be Altair, with maybe my second choice being Plotly, but none of that matters. Matplotlib is the most important Python plotting library, so that's what we're going to focus on here in Math 9. So let me show you how to import it. It looks maybe a tiny bit different from how we usually import things. Instead of saying, for example, I'll use it anyway, so I'll write this down now. Import numpy as np. Okay, for matplotlib, we're going to say import matplotlib dot pyplot. So think of this as saying we're not importing all of matplotlib, we're only importing this pyplot module. And then we're going to say as plt. Okay, another way you could do it if you wanted would be to say from matplotlib import pyplot. Okay, so again, this is saying we're not importing all of matplotlib, we're only importing the pyplot portion of it, and then say as plt. Okay, that would be another way to do this. Maybe I'm just going to comment this out. And the syntax takes a little getting used to, and part of the reason for that is if you're reading tutorials or seeing other people's code, you'll see two different syntaxes getting used often. And the one I want you to use is what's called the object-oriented syntax, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video. And then in a later video, I'll show you the alternative syntax that I do not want you to use. Okay, here is the object-oriented syntax. You say plt.subplots, okay, and then parentheses. And let's call this z, okay, the output of this. And so here it draws these empty axes, and I'll tell you in another video how to make this look maybe a little more modern, but for now this is fine. And so what type of object do you think this z is? And it's probably not what you think. If I say what's the type of z, I get that it's a tuple. And so if you have some unknown tuple, what's maybe the first question you would ask about it? I think what's its length would be the first natural question. So it's length 2. And so what is the 0th thing inside of this tuple? Hey, it looks just like the first result. If I ask what's the type of this z bracket 0, I get that it's a figure from Matplotlib. And so let's do the same thing for z bracket 1. Here it does not show me something. Instead, it says like this name that I don't really know how to read. And let's ask what's the type of this. So this is what's called an axes object. And so when I do plt.subplots, that returns two things, returns a figure and an axes object. And so this isn't how we're normally going to call plt.subplots. Usually what we're going to say, and this is using what's called tuple unpacking, fig comma ax equals plt.subplots. Okay, and this fig, that's the exact same as z0 from above. And for example, if I say what's the type of fig, it's a figure. If I say what's the type of ax, again, it's like z1 from above. It's one of these axes subplot objects. So let me copy this. This is what we're usually going to use. And let's try to plot cosine of x between 0 and 6, for example. So let's try to do that. So the syntax is you call the plot method from this axes object. And notice, not that this is so important, but notice that it's called axes, not axis. So I call the plot method from this axes object. And then it's very similar to Matplotlib, where the two first arguments should be the x coordinates and then the y coordinates. So for example, I could say range 6, and then I could say np.cosine range 6. And so this is bad for all sorts of ways. You see what some of the bad ways are? Like One reason it's bad is, in general, you don't want to be typing the same thing several times. Like, for example, when I was making this video, I changed one of these to a 7, and I forgot to change the other one to a 7. So, in general, the slogan in programming is dry, don't repeat yourself. And here I'm repeating this number 6, or really I'm repeating this whole thing, range 6. So that's like maybe the first bad thing I'm doing. So let's fix that first. So let me say x equals range 6, and then I can replace this with x, and then I can replace this with x. So that's nice because now if I want to change 6 to 7, I can just do it in one place. Okay, so that's a little better. What else could we want to improve from this? Well, why have I been talking about 7? Originally, I was saying I want to plot it from 0 to 6, but remember the range 6, that's going to stop at 5. So if I really want to go from 0 to 6, I should replace this with a 7. Okay, that's a tiny bit better. What else is bad about this? Let's start with maybe a silly thing. Maybe I don't like these square brackets up here at the top. So let me get rid of that. And this is the only use I know of in Python for semicolons. So I'm going to put a semicolon after this, and that's going to stop this line 2D from getting printed. Or maybe I have to put it here. Okay, yeah, I was wrong. I put it here after the thing that does the plotting. Okay, so, but that was just sort of a silly thing. I'd say the more obvious bad thing about this is that it looks so jagged, like it's only using 7 sample points. So let's try to fix that. I could say go from 0, 7 up by 0.1. But we've talked about this error before. Range in Python, it only accepts integer arguments. So how can I fix that? Well, one way would be to use np.arange, and that's already looking a lot better. Another option would be, instead of doing np.arange, I could do linspace. And then I'll say 0 to 7, and then how about I want 100 sample points? They look very similar to me. So I think that's all I'll do in this video. That was a quick introduction to using this plt.subplots version of creating a figure in Matplotlib, and a quick example of actually plotting something. And notice how similar the syntax is to MATLAB. Like, think of this, in this case, it's a NumPy array, a length 100 NumPy array of real numbers as the x-coordinates, and this is a length 100 NumPy array of the y-coordinates. And if these two lengths did not match, then we would get an error, and it would say the lengths have to match. Okay, that's enough for this video. Thank you for watching.